The smell reaches you before the road does. Wet wool, horse sweat, old blood dried into dust, and under all of it the sweetness of something dead that nobody has time to bury. Your feet are wrapped in rags because the shoes went 3 weeks ago. Ahead of you, the line of bodies moving east runs past the edge of what you can see. Behind you, it does the same. Nobody is fighting. Nobody has seen an enemy in over a month, and people are dying all day long. This is the march to Jerusalem, and you are 3 months into it. You have another 2.5 years to go. The rules are simple. You have to walk about 2,500 miles. You have to cross 2 mountain ranges, 1 desert plateau, and 4 rivers that will take people from your group without slowing down. You will do it carrying everything you own on your back, eating whatever the land in front of you has not already been stripped of by the 40,000 people walking ahead of you. There are levels to this road. Each one kills more of you than the last, and the enemy you were promised, the one the priest described, the one you sold your ox and your field to reach, does not appear until you are already most of the way to being a corpse. Let us find out how far you get. Level 1 begins in a field in the Rhineland in the autumn of 1096, and it does not feel like a level at all. It feels like a festival. A man on a cart has been speaking for 2 hours. He tells you the roads east are lined with fruit trees. He tells you the rivers there run clean. He tells you that whatever you owe, whoever you owe it to, whatever you did last winter that you still think about at night, all of it is canceled the moment you take the cross. He does not say the word starvation. He does not say the word Anatolia. He does not mention that most of the people standing in this field will be in the ground within 18 months, and that almost none of them will get there with a weapon in their hands. You are not a knight. Understand that first. The knights are somewhere else, in a different part of this, with horses and squires and a chest of coins. You are the other kind. You are the kind who has a knife, a blanket, a wooden bowl, and a wife who is coming with you, because staying alone in the village is worse. The crowd on this road is not an army. It is a town that has decided to walk. There are children in it. There are old women in it. There are men who have never held anything sharper than a scythe. There is a priest who is already coughing. You sell what you cannot carry. You get almost nothing for it, because everyone in the valley is selling on the same week, and the men buying know exactly what that does to a price. Your field goes for less than a year of its harvest. Your ox goes for less than that. Whatever you get is sewn into a strip of cloth and tied against your stomach under your shirt, where you will feel it every step for the next 800 miles, and where it will be worth less every week you carry it. The first 4 days are fine, better than fine. You eat bread, you sleep beside a fire, the column sings, somebody has a drum. The nights are cold, but the walking keeps you warm, and there is a strange lightness in the whole thing, the lightness of never having to see your landlord again. Then the blisters open. Level 2 is your own feet, and it takes the first 1,000 of you. Nobody warns you about this because nobody thinks of it as a danger. A blister is nothing. A child gets a blister. But you are walking 15 miles a day, every day, on leather that was made for standing in a field, over stone laid down by Romans 800 years ago and never repaired since. The blister opens on day 5. On day 7, it has spread across the ball of your foot, and the skin has gone yellow at the edge. On day 9, you cannot put weight on the heel, so you walk on the outside of the foot, which ruins your knee. On day 12, the redness has climbed above your ankle in a line, and that line is the thing that kills you. There is no doctor. There is a man who says a prayer over it and packs it with mud, which is how the line gets faster. When you cannot walk, the column does not stop. The column cannot stop, because the column has to reach the next town before the food there is gone. And there are people behind you who will reach it first if you slow them. Somebody helps you for a mile. Somebody carries your bowl. And then there is a morning where you are sitting by the road and the last of the singing goes past you and around the bend, and the noise gets smaller, and then it is quiet. and you are alone in a country where you do not speak a word of the language. That is how most of them go. Not in a battle. Sitting down. Keep your feet. Keep them dry when there is dry. Wrap them before they open and not after. Everyone who survives this road is someone who took their feet more seriously than the sermon. If you want to keep walking through the parts of history that got cleaned up before they reached you, subscribe. There is a great deal of road left. Level 3 is Hungary and the Balkans. And here, the road stops being a road. The paved stone runs out. What is left is a track of churned mud that 40,000 feet and 6,000 hooves have already turned into a river of clay. It comes over your ankles. It pulls the rags off your feet and keeps them. In the mornings, it is frozen into ridges sharp enough to open your shins, and by midday it has thawed into the same soup as yesterday, colder. You walk in it for 11 hours. You sleep beside it. Everything you own is the color of it. The country you are walking through hates you, and it is right to. Think about what is happening to it. 40,000 hungry strangers arrive at a village of 200 people and expect to be fed because they are on a holy errand. The village has one winter of grain in it. The grain is gone in an afternoon. Then the chickens. Then the pigs. Then the seed corn, which is not food, which is next year. And taking it kills the village slowly after you have walked away. So the villages stop waiting. They shut the gates. They drive the animals into the woods before you arrive. They poison the shallow wells and leave the deep one for themselves. And when a group of your people go around a hill on their own to look for a lamb, they do not come back. And nobody goes to look for them, because everybody understands what happened, and everybody understands that it was earned. You cross the rivers at fords that were chosen by men on horses. A horse in chest-deep water is inconvenienced. A woman carrying a bundle in chest-deep water is dead. The cold takes the breath out of the lungs and the current does the rest. And the ones who go under quietly, with almost no noise at all, which is the part nobody ever describes. There is no shout. There is a gap in the line where somebody was. By the time the column reaches the walls of Constantinople, 1 person in 6 who left the Rhineland is not there anymore. And you are not yet a quarter of the way to Jerusalem. Now for the part that will make you angriest. Level 4 is not a hardship. Level 4 is a city with 60,000 people in it who are all clean. You come over a rise, and there it is. And you have never seen anything like it, and you will never see anything like it again. Walls 3 men thick. Domes covered in gold that hurts to look at in the afternoon. Aqueducts still running. Water arriving in the middle of a city on stone legs. Water for free. Water for washing. There are streets here with drains under them. There are people here wearing silk in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. There are shops that sell nothing but perfume, which is a concept you do not have a word for. They do not let you in. Understand the arithmetic of that. The people inside the walls look out and they do not see pilgrims. They see 40,000 starving foreigners with knives, standing in their fields. So they open one gate for a few at a time, under guard, on set days, and they sell you food at whatever price they feel like naming. And the price they feel like naming is the price of a man with a full granary talking to a man who has not eaten since yesterday. The strip of cloth against your stomach empties in about a week. Meanwhile, your leaders are being taken up to a hall to sit on cushions. They are given wine that has been cooled. They are given roasted meat and fruit out of season, and a bath, an actual bath, in heated water, while their army sleeps in a field outside eating boiled weeds. The great men of your march take an oath in that hall, over gold plates, about who will own which city after it is captured. Cities you have not reached. Cities you will die 200 miles short of. That is the shape of this whole thing, and you may as well learn it here. The road is one road. It is not one experience. The man on the horse arrives at the same river you do, and crosses it dry, and eats that night, and sleeps under canvas. You arrive at the same river and wade it, and lose your blanket in it, and sleep in what you are wearing. Even suffering has a rank. Answer something for yourself while we keep moving. Standing in that field in the Rhineland, hearing that sermon, would you have gone? Put it in the comments before you hear the rest, because the rest changes the answer. And nobody sleeps properly again after the first month. That is the quiet cost that never gets counted. You lie down on ground you did not choose, in wet clothes, with your knife under your hand because there are thieves inside this column, as surely as outside it. Somebody near you is coughing. Somebody further off is dying and taking all night about it. The animals shift and stamp. A child cries and cannot be quieted and eventually is. You are up at first light because the column moves at first light, and you do this for 1,000 nights in a row, and the tiredness stops being tiredness and becomes the shape of your mind. Men make bad decisions on this road that look stupid in the retelling. They were not stupid. They had not slept in 2 years. Now let us talk about what you think this looks like, because you have seen the films, and the films have lied to you in a very specific way. The picture in your head is a wall of men in mirror-bright mail, red crosses on white surcoats, banners, a wedge of horses hitting a line of defenders in a courtyard, clean stone, clean steel, a duel between 2 named men while everyone stands back to watch. Here is what the road actually looks like at this point. It looks like a straggling column 10 miles long, made mostly of people on foot, most of them not soldiers, most of them women and boys and men with farm tools. The mail that exists is brown, because iron on a wet road is brown within a fortnight, and no amount of scouring keeps it silver. The white surcoats are the color of the mud in whatever country they last fell down in. The banners are for finding your own group at dusk, not for glory. And the great enemy of this expedition is not a swordsman, it is a stomach. Do the arithmetic yourself. Out of everyone who leaves Western Europe for Jerusalem in these years, the number who die in an actual fight, facing an actual armed opponent, is a small slice. The rest are taken by thirst, by hunger, by dysentery, by fever, by cold, by drowning, by wounds that would be nothing today, by walking. The road does the killing. The enemy just gets the credit. If a stomach frightens you more than a sword now, leave a like. It pushes this kind of history toward people who were only ever shown the banners. Which brings you to the level that empties the column. Level 5 is the Anatolian plateau in high summer, and it is the one that decides whether you exist in 3 months. The green ends. It ends over the course of a single day. You walk out of scrubland in the morning, and by evening you are in a country the color of old bone, flat to the edge of the world in 3 directions, with a wind coming across it that is hotter than your own breath. There is no shade, not small shade, none. There is no tree from the horizon behind you to the horizon in front of you, and the sun comes down on the top of your skull for 14 hours, and there is nowhere to put your head. The wells here have been dealt with before you arrived, filled with stones, fouled with a dead goat. The people who live in this country know exactly which way you are walking and exactly how fast, and they have been ahead of you for a week, doing simple work with a shovel. Thirst is not what you think it is. You think it is wanting a drink. Real thirst is a physical dismantling that goes in order, and out here you get to watch it work through thousands of people at once. First your mouth goes dry, and your spit turns to paste. Then your tongue thickens and starts to feel too large for your jaw, and it cracks along the top, and the cracks bleed, and the blood tastes like metal and makes you thirstier. Then you stop sweating, which feels like relief for about an hour, and is in fact the beginning of the end. Then your urine goes dark, then orange, then it stops. Then the headache arrives and it does not leave. Then you start seeing water, not imagining it. Seeing it, out on the flat and walking toward it, and people have to catch your arm and turn you back into the line. The nights are worse off than you here. And this is the one place where being poor helps. A man in mail on this plateau is a man carrying 30 pounds of iron that has been sitting in direct sun since dawn. It burns to the touch. It cooks him inside his own clothes. Horses go down first, in numbers, and each horse that goes down is a man who becomes a walker like you, and a walker who has spent his whole life on horseback, has soft feet, and does not last. When you finally reach water, it is a shallow brown stream, and there are 10,000 of you. The front of the column drinks. Then the middle of the column drinks what the front has stood in. Then the animals are driven through it. Then the back of the column arrives at dusk and drinks a warm brown soup of silt and hoof mud and whatever came off the bodies of the people upstream, and drinks it gratefully, in handfuls on their knees. That water is how you get to level 6. Level 6 is the camp, and the camp is the deadliest place on this entire road. Nobody makes a plan for where thousands of people relieve themselves. It happens at the edge of the sleeping ground because it is dark and you are tired, and you are not walking far in a country where going out alone gets you killed. In 3 days, that edge is a ring. Then it rains, and the ring runs downhill, and downhill is where the stream is, and the stream is what you cook with. It comes at night, usually. A man goes to sleep normal and wakes at 2 in the morning, with cramps that fold him in half. By dawn, it is coming out of him like water, and it does not stop. It does not stop for a day. It does not stop for 3 days. He cannot keep down what he drinks. So the thing that is killing him is the same thing that would save him, and he lies there in a stain of his own making, getting lighter, until his eyes sink back into his skull, and his skin stays pinched when you pinch it. Then his face goes strange and sharp and old, and then he stops asking for water, which is the sign. And then in the morning he is stiff, and somebody takes his blanket, because it is a good blanket, and he has finished with it. The smell of that camp does not exist in your world. It is human waste in open ground in high heat, and old blood, and animal carcasses left where they dropped, and unwashed bodies packed close, and vomit, and wood smoke laid over all of it. Flies in a moving carpet, flies on the food, flies at the corners of the eyes of a man too weak to lift his hand. You get used to it in about a week, and that is a horrible thing to learn about yourself. At the worst of it, in the winter camps outside the Great Walled City in Syria, the ground is too wet to dig, and the dead are not buried at all for weeks. People sleep beside them, because moving means giving up your patch of dry ground. Level 7 is that siege, and it is where the last of what you were is taken off you. You sit outside a city you cannot get into, on ground that has already been stripped for miles in every direction, through a winter of rain that never fully stops. The tents rot. The bread runs out in the first month. What you eat after that goes in a sequence that everyone who was there remembers in the same order. First the pack animals, which is a real meal and almost a good week. Then the mules. Then the war horses, which are worth more than a house and are cut up anyway, and men cry doing it. Then dogs. Then rats when you can catch them, and you learn to catch them. Then the boiling of leather, saddle straps, shield covers, the soles of shoes, boiled for hours until the water goes thick and greasy, and you drink that and chew the leather to nothing. Then thistles, and the roots of things, and the bark stripped off the trees you have not yet burned, ground between stones with dirt in it, and cooked into a gray paste. There are stories that come out of that winter about what the hungriest of the poor did to the bodies of the enemy dead. The chroniclers of the march write it down themselves, in their own account, on their own side, which tells you they could not pretend it away. Read it as what it is. It is the last stage of a group of human beings who have been walking for 2 years toward a promise and have arrived at a wall. The women of the camp carry the siege on their backs and no one writes their names down. They are the ones hauling water up from the river under arrow shot, because a woman at the bank is thought less worth a shaft than a man in mail. They are the ones grinding the bark. They are the ones holding a man down while a piece of iron is dug out of his thigh with a knife heated in a cook fire, and holding him again 3 days later when the wound turns green and starts to smell sweet. Half of what keeps that camp alive through the winter is done by people the chronicles mention once, as a crowd, in a single line. People desert in the night. Important people. Men with names. Men who made speeches in the field in the Rhineland. Go over the wall of the camp in the dark and ride west, and are never spoken of again except as a curse. Nobody blames the ones who go. Everyone remembers who they were. Stay with it. The last stretch is the one nobody warns you about, and it is where the arithmetic finally lands. Level 8 is the last 200 miles, and by now you barely resemble the person who left. You are down to a fraction of the crowd that stood in that field. The column that walks south along the coast in the spring of 1099 is not an army of 40,000. It is a hard little remnant, a fraction of what set out, with almost no horses left and a great many men walking barefoot because the leather was eaten last year. Your clothes have been repaired with cloth taken off the dead. Your hair is matted into a solid mass, and there are lice in the seams of everything you own, and you no longer notice either. Your gums bleed when you chew. 2 of your back teeth are loose. You have a cough that has been with you since the mountains, and will be with you until you die, whenever that turns out to be. And you are, in the flat, unarguable sense, one of the lucky ones. Everyone who set out beside you and is not here now did not go home. There is no going home from the middle of Anatolia. They are in the ground beside the road, or not even in the ground, spaced out across 2,000 miles like mile markers. Then one morning in June you come up a ridge and the men in front stop walking, and you push forward to see why, and there it is on the far hill. Small, sand-colored, ordinary-looking. The thing you have been walking towards since before your children could speak properly, since the harvest of 3 years ago, since the ox in the field and the man on the cart. Men fall down. That is not decoration, that is what is recorded. Grown men lie face down in the dirt and cry at the sight of a wall. And the city does not care. The wells outside it are already stopped up and filled in. The valley has been stripped and the herds driven off. The last few weeks in front of that place, in June heat, are as thirsty as the plateau was, and men who walked 2,500 miles die of dehydration in sight of the destination, which is the cruelest arithmetic on the entire road. What happens when the walls come down is not what this video is about, and you know enough of it already. What matters for you, standing where you are standing, is the accounting. Count the field in the Rhineland. Count every column that left Western Europe in those years, every crowd that took the cross, every cart and family and priest. Then count what is standing on that hill in the summer of 1099. The number that arrives is a small fraction of the number that left. Depending on which contemporary count you trust, well over half of everyone who set out is gone, and by some accounts far more than that. And the overwhelming majority of them never traded a blow with anybody. They were killed by water, by heat, by their own camp, by their own feet. So, would you survive the march to Jerusalem? Be honest about what the question is actually asking. It is not asking whether you can fight. Nobody on that road needed you to fight. It is asking whether you can walk 15 miles a day for 3 years on a bad diet. Whether you can keep the skin on your feet intact with no clean water and no bandage. Whether you can drink from a stream that 10,000 people have already stood in and not have your body break down. Whether you can watch the person who came with you sit down beside the road and keep walking without them, because stopping means you both stay there. The people who made it were not the strongest. The strongest died first, because the strongest carried more and gave away food, and stayed behind with the stragglers. The ones who arrived were the ones with luck and stubborn guts, and even that is not a reason, because plenty of stubborn people are buried in Anatolia too. If you are still standing at this point in the road, subscribe and pick the next one. There are other places on this channel where the dirt is deeper and the water is worse. Here is the part that should stay with you. Every one of them chose it. Nobody drove them east with a whip. They stood in a field and heard a man describe a road lined with fruit trees, and they weighed that against another winter of the same landlord and the same gray bread and the same 12 feet of dirt floor, and they decided the road was worth it. That is the real distance of this march, not the 2,500 miles. The gap between the life they had and a story about a road. A gap so wide that walking until their feet came apart looked like the better option. Tonight you will drink water out of a tap without looking at it. You will do it without a thought, in the dark, half asleep, and go back to bed. Somewhere under the dust of the Anatolian plateau, there are tens of thousands of people who walked toward the idea of clean water for 2 years and never reached it.